Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street and Hedera video today, HBAR. Haven't done this one for a while. In fact, the last time we did a video on this was about a month ago, which is crazy how time has flown. Before we go into a couple of interesting ecosystem topics and certainly the price action, a bit of stabilization going on at the moment, do not forget to check out the other videos on the channel and make sure you smash that subscribe button if you have not done so already. Welcome to the channel for those that are new. Hello to all the existing ones as well. Absolutely fantastic support, nearly towards the 10,000 subscriber mark. Absolutely brilliant to have you all here. Hopefully everyone's learning something. I always am. So guys, let's go into a couple of topics here. I just want to talk a few things here about the ecosystems of Hedera. There's something we covered a few months back, but there's been a few additions and a few interesting movements in terms of different kind of partners and additions to the Hedera network and mainnet here. So first of all, this one's really interesting actually. It's called Humans. Now I'm quite interested in this because of the AI aspect of it. Now we know AI is a massive topic in general around the world right now, especially with the chat systems and things like this. And I'm very interested, particularly with AI in terms of blockchain utility. You know, we cover like IOTA, Hedera being another one that actually, to be honest, on this topic of direct acyclic graphs is very interesting because these are what the evolution of blockchain was about: integrating smart grids, smart technology, AI, IoT, you name it. But AI has a load of different functionalities and a load of different principles to it as well. There's still a lot of regulation to come in for it, and how far we go with it, of course, is very much up in the air right now. But this is a really interesting project actually, because it's very much about integrating AI into NFTs. Now, there's loads of really strange, exciting and peculiar as well offerings from this particular company. AI NFTs is something I was sort of scratching my head about a few days back until I was doing a bit more research on this, and it's not really like something relatively amazingly new as such, but it's certainly something, or one of the first impressions that I've got is this is one that's actually got a bit of utility behind it, and also something that is provided a solution for in the here and now, not something that they're talking about in the future. And you can start seeing the stepping stone approach of how this might work. Things like digital avatars, the AI integration of things like voice. I thought that was a very interesting topic from these guys. The ability to clone your voice. So this means that it would be into blockchain forever and forever. Almost, you know, like oddly enough on the name Humans here, there used to be a program called Humans on TV here in the UK, or Netflix or something, and it was about consciousness being in a computer format or an AI format. So like basically, I think it was like the scientist who played Trinity in Matrix actually. Her daughter like passed away or something when she was young, and she cloned her voice into the AI sphere, but also the consciousness. Now that's another topic, but the fact that we could put AI into here and actually essentially verify and process voice, which is very interesting if you think about the concept of deep fake, for example, where we saw some crazy videos over the last few years where we have people on screen with automated audio from other people, like famous people or presidents, whatever it might be, and it was almost like, how do we even know who's real on the screen anymore? So there's a bit of verification in regards to the AI technology that could be put into NFTs, but also the concept of just your voice in general and providing it in there. So yeah, you never know when it might be needed. It could be for like voice recognition. It could be for an approval or verification of a sale or a product or something that you own, and that is your verification to prove that it's you, kind of thing. And this relates heavily into DIDs, digital identities, of course. But this here about synthetic media is also interlaced as well, because then we can start encouraging, is this actually real media? Is it fake? Is it a fake impression of a person? Whatever that might be. And when you're thinking about trademarks, whether it be audio from a film or audio as a person, it gets really interesting, because a lot of musicians now are entering NFTs, you know, like Snoop Dogg and many others around there in various different genres, right? And the reason behind that is because they want to digitalize their solution, their like genre of music, whatever it might be, or an audio piece, and cement that in blockchain so that it can't be copied, it can be traced, it can be verified, it can be processed. It could have limited numbers available, like the old days of singles and albums when you used to buy them in HMV and stuff, where some might have been limited or certain exclusive sales. So if you kind of interlace that interesting sort of format, it does become a really interesting topic. So this is all powered on the Hedera network right now, which is really interesting. I recommend having just look through this because it's really interesting to open your mind up to really interesting possibilities. And when you can incorporate that into other philosophies and how this might work in other areas, could be absolutely insane to bring this to life. So that was one of them. The other one was Atma here, atma.io, again powered by Hedera. The reason I pulled this out as a topic is because there's something that Hedera pushed quite a lot on their socials, but for me this is probably one of the biggest opportunities and variable, get the words right, options to something like VeChain. Now I've held VeChain for a long time, but when I know that there's things like Hedera powering these kind of things, it's quite exciting really, because when we're talking about logistics and supply chain, there is a humongous element of blockchain that could be integrated into this. We've mentioned many times through IOTA videos about the complexities of logistics and supply chain and verifying something or seeing how far something has come, where it's originated from. Are people getting paid enough at source and all the way through the system? And can we prove that? And this is something that's quite interesting because this does interlace with digital identity in some capacities, but also for the traceability factors, and also to confirm to you, what is this product? Where has it come from? What materials have been used? Has it been sustainable? Whether it be through transportation or the making of that product or device, whatever it might be, and potentially making a conscious decision, albeit that at the moment we're talking about things like QR codes that you would scan manually with your phone. In the near future, guys, we will have the retina displays. There's no doubt about it. Whether that's in goggle format or a lens that goes across your eyes, and you won't even need to get your phone out anymore. Biometric payments, AI kicked in, and AR as well, of course, XR, all of these things coming to life, and you would basically pick up an item in the store or in a showroom virtually through the metaverse or a virtual showroom like this kind of thing, and you'd be able to pick that item up, scan the QR code with your eye, or at least see the visual data in your eyes. You can imagine like a minority report, it just spreads out data into your field of vision, and you can see anything and everything you need to know about this, where it's come from, and you can make a conscious decision if you wanted to be like, actually, this is not very sustainable. And even from a company's perspective of bringing new items to sell in their stores or their businesses, they could also do this from their end to be like, actually, we only want to get in certain or specific required items and things like this for the consumer, right? So there's all these really interesting things. And how does Hedera fit into this? Well, we talk about again the aspect of the tangle mechanism in IOTA, or DAG in general. Let's call it DAG. Let's remove the marketing. It's called Direct Acyclic Graph. This is the evolution of blockchain, in my opinion. And we mentioned things before about the Internet of Things, the smart grid, how agriculture, healthcare, transportation, supply, anything and everything you could possibly think of will be interlaced into this blockchain sphere. And how do we create these transactions on a multitude level of thousands, if not millions per second eventually, to basically accommodate a full, entire, automated, simultaneous system worldwide to the millisecond, guys. And it's no different really to logistics in terms of supply and demand mechanism, where these products are getting pulled from. It could be like, oh, this country hasn't got enough. We know this because the data's immediately told us. In fact, AI's already done it. It's done it without us even thinking about it. And it knows where to source products, devices from that the manufacturer or the robotics have created. And thus the world goes around in this AI DAG sphere. It's hard to get your head around, but the technology is already here and being integrated. And over the next sort of 10, 20 years, we're going to see some gigantic changes in the way that we manufacture, the way that we give that supply and demand mechanism, the transportation, the logistics, everything, algorithm, data driven. It's really fascinating, guys. Traceability, one of the really interesting topics that I spoke to someone about a while back, was actually in things like fair trade, right? Now, there's always something that we went through in university and stuff about ethics, right? Ethic marketing and stuff like this. And actually, fair trade gives a label to something to suggest that it's better than the alternative before, where there perhaps wasn't a fair trade or a fair price for something that was harvested or seeded and basically in the agricultural world, this particular topic. And it was like, okay, right now with blockchain, the beginning person or whoever is making the food produce, right, let's say the harvesting and the seeding, the time, consumption, and then selling that, exporting it across the world or whatever chain system they're using, are they getting paid the proper amount based on supply and demand, based on the world's algorithm that the price of this commodity should be XYZ based on everything that's data driven? Not dictated to by someone or someone that's coming in going, oh, I'll negotiate this, I'll give you the least amount possible, but you're still getting some things, to stop complaining. And you as a user, as a consumer at the end of this, again, and at store level as well, if they wanted to, could determine, actually, we're not going to get our products from here anymore or our food produce from here anymore because of the scenario that they're not getting paid the right way. But with blockchain, it eradicates all of this. Even as a conversation, you just know, it knows. So you could punch in some data, say, I want produce that ticks all these boxes. You know that for the future. Behavioral patterns kick in, supply and demand, all of these things kick in as well. And hey presto, you've got everything in a linear format. This is where it gets really interesting, in my opinion, for just small, simple things in your head that you think, wow, this bottle of wine, how much does it actually cost the economy or the transportation, the carbon footprint? Do I want to start getting things locally again? Or, is this the most sustainable way forward with everything? And that look at all these things that you could apply this to. And it's absolutely spot on. And it's really interesting because then we also, as a consumer, and if you're a business buying things from distribution or logistic chain channels, is you can really determine, like, hang on a minute, you're fobbing me off here with all this money. There was a greengrocer, grocer in general, a big grocer, FMCG, that I used to visit quite a bit for meetings and things. And their head office is crazy. It was like NASA. They had probably a room with about 100, 200 screens in it, and they could tell exactly what a commodity price should be based on supply and demand and prices around the market and the whole world. It could tell you, oh, actually, we're not going to buy from you because you're charging too much for the packaging that you're using. And they knew this through the mechanism of barcodes and things like that, and where it's come from, who's supplying it, etc., where they're getting the supply from. And they literally would turn around to brands and say, we're not stocking you until you bring your costs down because we can tell you definitively you're charging us too much money. Now, it's all very well because the grocers would then go and charge whatever they want in the supermarket, right? But that intermediary was exceptional. And maybe, just maybe, it was powered by blockchain. I don't know. But the system was incredible. And it really started me thinking heavily when I started reading more about these kind of things and looping that back to Hedera's powering of transactions per second, the data that it could be applicable to. It gets massively interesting. And when we talk about trade finance, guys, which we've talked about many times, multi-trillion dollars worth industry and multi-millions, if not billions potentially lost with systematic events of wastage. It could be all the way through things like not the right price, not the right data. All of this could increase the economy, the speed of everything. It could potentially reduce the cost of so many things. And this is where I loop into the CBDC conversation, inflation in a few years' time, is that I guarantee governments around the world will turn around and say CBDC is a solution. We will never have inflation again. We will never have debt again because everything can be data-driven and ensure that we never go down this route again. And it could be that everything interlacing into this, where we go, oh, we're missing tax from here, we're gonna have to charge people for this, or we're missing this wastage from here, or this isn't sustainable enough, it's costing us this, and we're passing on to taxpayer. It could potentially eradicate that. I'm not saying they're going to, because I'm not sure they're that generous, but the ideology behind blockchain, and what I've always said, is if we go down the right path with the right people behind this and regulating it, we could have a really interesting, sustainable, and very fair world. Honestly, I think this is so exciting and interesting to think about. But anyway, guys, I'm trying to reduce the topic conversations a bit more so we can have a bit more time with the charts and other videos as well. So let's jump into the price point. Let us know in the comments below what you think about all that, by the way. But my point being is that Hedera is powering some great projects and thought-provoking projects as well, where is AI, how far is that going to go? And now we're seeing the formats of it in NFTs and digital identities and stuff like this. How far do we push this, and do we want to push it any further? So very interesting to know what you guys think about that. Hopefully you found that interesting. Anyway, let's jump into the chart. Current price point, guys, of Hedera Hashgraph HBAR on the exchange at literally just around 7 cents. Okay, so we have taken this up around about 125% from the beginning of January up to the end of January, and we got some good stabilization occurring right now. Okay, now this is a really interesting point for me personally, because I do like to accumulate Hedera as and when possible, especially at these lower regions. It was absolutely fantastic to pick up Hedera, and if you remember the previous videos, I said honestly there will come a point, not necessarily thinking that it would go up this quick in that short space of time, but there will be plenty of opportunities, guys, for sure, for more of this, and I believe to test these lower areas again. But my point being is that, don't waste these opportunities to get at these lower areas to where we've come from with Hedera. I mean, bear in mind, previously in 2021, we hit highs of nearly 60 cents. There is so much room for growth here. Even buying at less than 10 cents is still a massive achievement, in my opinion, and it's just about DCAing into this one. But my point being that why I'm excited is we're now really testing this area. You can see it's trying to gain support at around about this 6.8 cent mark, roughly around this area, and this is very much matching with some interesting upward and downward patterns that we saw in a very short space of time across really most of 2022. And to deliver my point way back in one of the many videos that we've done, is that we're now testing these higher areas that we saw way back here in around 2020, and these kind of areas towards 2021. As you can see, there's 2 or 3 areas of interest here. One being this area where we shot through, one where we saw resistance here, and twice where we saw resistance here. 2020 all the way through to 2021, and that's when it took off, right? But we had the massive uprise, and eventually this was always going to come down, and that's where we are right now. We're seeing this in fruition, and if you look at the scale outwards, you can clearly see the line across it. In fact, I'll just draw it as well here so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Look at that, straight down there, exactly what we're trying to achieve as a support level. Now, could we potentially gain that support and shoot Hedera back upwards? There's going to be a lot of momentum that needs to occur with this. First of all, some elements of Bitcoin, but the macro events, the interest rates, the inflation, everything bad that's going on in the world right now can have a massive influence on the charts, on stock markets in general, and markets especially in crypto. Of course, where are people putting their money? Do they need more money to pay for things? Are they taking money out? Whatever it might be. But as I said, what's very interesting is we are literally identifying this support line right now to see if we can confirm the areas that we tried to obtain in 2022 or most of 2022, and ones that we saw all the way back in 2020, literally pretty much 3 years ago, guys. And if you remember, March and April time 2020 was when we had the big massive market downward trend worldwide, because obviously the pandemic kicking and everything like this. And it was a great opportunity for people to be grabbing back down at these 3 cent levels. We've hit those areas before. I don't think we've really fully tested that area, in all honesty. Look at this huge gap between January 2021 and relatively about a month ago, basically. And now we're taking this upward trend. So my anticipation, guys, my opinion is that we will indeed test these lower areas again. We have to confirm them as proper support lines before we can go upwards. We have this massive upward trend, 125% in a short space of time. I don't think it could necessarily conclude that area fully, but you will see some really good stabilization for maybe indeed the next few days or weeks, because people are so confident and trustworthy in this token, this asset, this project, this technology, whatever you want to call it. It's phenomenal, and it's going to have a huge future, and people are trying to keep it upright for a bit longer. But for me, selfishly, I would love to see those lower areas, and that's where I'd start penetrating these lower fib levels of around 5.7 cents, sorry, so literally just under that 6 cent mark. You could argue that there's some DC opportunity in between there as well, around this sort of 6.4 cent mark as well, but I do always have my buy orders at these lower regions too. I think I adjusted my recent one slightly. I did have it around the lower regions of 4 cents, but I think it's going to be taking some significant downward trend to pull us back down to those areas properly. Not saying that it won't happen, but we can surely reassess that as time goes by. So I did change my recent buy order, I think it was around to 4.7 cents, just to match up in between these macro and longer term fib retracement levels, just in case. So they're the three areas that I'm focused on right now. I've got limit orders on, or buy orders on at least. The RSIs right now around 62 on the 14-day and 61 on 28-day. This is slightly too high for me right now to be accumulating too much manually, but I'm anticipating that the RSI will drag itself down a bit more. The 14-day you could expect to come down quite a bit anyway in a short space of time, but the 28-day is the one I'm more interested in, because as you can see, we've had this big monthly uprise. I want to see what we can achieve price point wise when that RSI on the 28-day closing comes in at around maybe 55 towards the 50 mark, and then I'll reassess it. And that's where I think we probably start seeing these markers at these lower regions here. We'll have to see, because the performance isn't too bad with Hedera. 3% up on the week's not massive, but I'm very intrigued by the 1 month and certainly the year to date in general, which is pretty obvious anyway, and the 3 months. But the year overall, in terms of year to year, is still in massive negative areas, guys. So there's a great opportunity for potential lower areas. But also, if you're new to Hedera and you're like, oh, I'm happy to just accumulate and manually start my positions around these areas, honestly, I think in the long term, between the 6 cent and the 4 cent mark is probably going to be immaterial. It's just a matter of how many more thousands of Hedera you can get for your pound or your dollar, etc., of course. But I think the main point here is that there's a humongous opportunity for upward trend here, and I do believe that by 2025, you might call me crazy, but I do think this could be a $3 to $5 mark by around that 2025 era, because of all the integrations it's got, the ecosystems that it's building, and the integrations of CBDCs, the regulation, blockchain, AI, IoT, smart, everything you can possibly think of. I love the DAG protocol, direct to cyclic graph. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch our video on that technology at the end of this one. I'll leave the link in there. But similarly, my passion and excitement towards IOTA is very much reciprocated as well with Hedera. So it's got a great future, a massive future ahead, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm just going to keep an eye out for some lower opportunities to accumulate. But I'm equally not as mad to just have small, very small manual purchases around these areas, especially as I'd like to see almost a bit of a verification that this is stabilizing a bit. But those areas are certainly in there, the lower ones, to hopefully grab as well. Let us know in the comments below what you are doing with your Hedera. Have you enjoyed that uprise? Did you take any profits? Are you just accumulating like I am? I'm not interested in selling Hedera, guys, for at least maybe 2-3 more years as a minimum. And that will even be a small percentage of a sell-off, not all of it, because wow, this is going to be a phenomenal gem for the years to come, maybe even the decade or so to come as well. So let us know, guys. Always interested in your opinions and thoughts and anything about what we've spoken about in this whole entire video. I'm going to wrap that up there. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next Hedera update video. Bye-bye.